can be falling apart, and I can be in that moment of just working with the art form.
It has to be real. It has to transcend people, that they forget where they are.
What can you create out of nothing? We get to play in that world.
Feel the wind in your hair moving across the floor and turning so that your partner catches you at the right second.
You have the satisfaction at the end of the show, say, wow, this really rocked.
I'm not sure that anybody 75 years ago had a vision that there'd be a classical ballet company 75 years down the road in the middle of the Canadian prairies.
I began lessons with Gweneth, Lloyd, and Farrally when I was 6. Didn't like it the first year, and Gweneth said her brain is faster than her legs right now, but she'll catch up.
In some respects, I think it's so typically Canadian and so typically Manitoban and so typically Winnipeg.
Ballet, nobody knew what a ballet was here.
Yeah, they had left England, they took a train across Canada. It was an incredible story how they stopped in Winnipeg and were wooed to stay in Winnipeg, because their plan was to go to Australia, actually.
It's almost like a Monty Python sketch. Oh, this looks like a good place to stop, you know?
You know, they were a driving force my first years at Banff, and just you seeing their knowledge and just the way they would look at people that stood out.
I think once Gweneth made up her mind, that was it.
And Betty Farrally was the sergeant major. She was the one that landed on you and gave you a poke in the back and hit your bum, and and Gweneth was very sweet. Now let's do that again.
We're the first Royal Ballet in the British Commonwealth.
We were on stage in Montreal when Betty came and said, "We have an announcement to make. Oh, we have been given the Royal Charter."
At the time, it was a huge deal.
Queen Elizabeth came. We danced at the old arena.
All of a sudden, this little company in the middle of the prairies gets a royal designation, and people go, why?
It was a very hot, dry June evening. The building caught fire, the Times building, and it blew across to the building that the new studio was in. If you don't have costumes and sets, if you don't have a studio to train people in, what do you do?
The fire certainly was decimating, but in some respects it also galvanized the organization. All of a sudden people had to step up and do something. Maybe if it hadn't happened, we might not exist. I was actually about 15 when I first worked here. I was more interested in the backstage stuff than the onstage stuff. We had this old warehouse down on Notre Dame, and I got there and we're painting crates with, Caterpillar tractor enamel. So I often say my first job was painting crates and cleaning toilets.
Well, I came here in 1975 as a young student. I essentially ran away from home, I think $600 in my pocket. And the company had this incredible brand, as it still does to this day. I mean, the RWB is such a known entity. And it's partially because it has toured everywhere.
The one-night stand tours are great in anticipation and wonderful in retrospect, but during they suck.
The allure of coming to Winnipeg was the touring that the company did in those days.
If you think of a typical day back then, we'd get up off of our crew bus or camper and see a whole bunch of people coming in after you've been handling crates and steel and lights and all this hardware, and remembering what you're doing it for.
The company was set up so that all the dancers and the musicians and a certain amount of wardrobe staff would travel on one bus.
We'd be on the road for 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, and I'd come home and I'd say, oh dear, I've got to do the laundry. And he said, oh good, you'll be around for some time. I said, no, back on the road again another 2 days.
We would just walk in and like kind of just throw your costume on and, you know, quick point your feet and off onto the stage.
You know, danced on the stages in London, Sadler's Wells. When I died as Tybalt in Athens, you could hear people gasping.
We received the best company in 1968 at the Paris Festival.
It's always amazing to me when people will sit down and just say, that's the Royal Winnipeg Ballet. They know the ballet and they don't know the city.
There was a series of firsts. We were the first one to go on the other side of the Iron Curtain. We were the first one to go to Cuba. We were the first one to go to Latin America. All kinds of Canadian firsts in that sense.
Those were all wow moments. Sometimes it took years to understand that. People like Arnold Spohr and David Maroney, and whether we knew it or not, they were our mentors.
Arnold Spohr had that vision. He had so much talent, you know, he recognized a good piece of choreography and a good music and the balance and how it could work out. And he would just go to this small group of dancers and say, we could do this.
The ecstasy of Rita Joe, nothing had been done like that before. Giving people things that they couldn't see from other companies.
I think David starting the professional division was a huge step in our history and in our development because the school has helped feed the company.
Evelyn Hart, Canada, старший возраст.
One of our most proud moments was having Evelyn Hart as a principal dancer with us.
I was in the company when she won medal in Japan and also in Varna.
That is a calling card when you have the first Western woman winning gold medal in a competition like that. People wanted to see Evelyn Hart. She transcended time. You'd look at her and think she had no bones. All of a sudden, the company is so much more marketable. They want to see this superstar.
When I became director, I felt it was important to also add contemporary full-length works, such as Dracula. And now we have a Cinderella story, a beautiful work. We have Peter Pan, we have Moulin Rouge.
We have done Swan Lake, we have done Sleeping Beauty, but we also do Going Home Star, which nobody else in the world does.
Longevity. Holy smokes, the fact that we are here and still going strong.
Our #1 fan is the city of Winnipeg, you know.
You can't ever stop working, you can't ever stop trying to perfect what you do. That's a dancer's life. And I loved mostly every minute.